Hello everyone, welcome back to Tesla Plays MaGMML 3. So, we are back here. Before we get started with the judge commentary, there is something we need to actually address. This. Really just should have looked this up last time. Uh-huh. Wait. No? This is where they said it is, though. Is near the hot dog. Hmm. Oh my god. I checked up here, and there wasn't anything. I checked. Oh my god. Alright, whatever. Freaking invisible staircase ladders. Or in some cases, descending ladders. Anyways. Time to do some judge commentary. First up, we'll be doing X6 meme by the It. Okay, so how do I do this? Okay, there we go. First, Mick, 13 of 100. Full disclosure. Unlike the previous major MaGMML contest, we had measures in place, led us to remove levels from the running entirely. If a majority of the judges agreed it broke with the major rules, it would be cut. Otherwise, all 5 of us had to unanimously agree that it warranted removal. And we're all very different people, so it's genuinely hard to get. That I could legitimately beat it 100%, no need for debug cheats, saved it from a majority vote against truly unreasonable difficulty. And I've seen enough fledgling creators make abhorrently terrible stuff to figure that X6 meme, despite the name, is a genuine effort. I have opinions about that statement, so it couldn't get a unanimous exclusive vote. Thus it's sitting here, albeit a dead last. Does that mean the level is truly worth playing? Well, I think I could ever say this, but now I'm craving snake donuts. Certainly I would have preferred them to what's here. The level's opening section does it no favors already, with pixel-perfect jumps on ice with bomb-bombs, machine gun shows, and gabiles, all of which have little to nothing to do with X6. Yeah, for being an X6 themed level, I'm not really feeling it myself, and I've played me some X6, so... Needless to say, busting out special weapons is a far better choice to make here. Understatement. That's followed by a long funneling section with levels graphics deliberately breaking down, which I'll admit is at least a cool visual. I mean, it's a visual, right? But then we get to the big highlight. Hold on. Is there a way to read that? I don't know if there is. Get to the big highlight. This level, the upwards auto scroll. And Gyag. Words do not accurately describe how utterly and thoroughly unreasonable and downright miserable that section actually is. Yeah, I might try it if I have a lot of upgrades, but man, that is horrible. If by some miracle you're reading this review before playing this level, take the judge panel's advice. Especially the fact that this was nearly cut from the contest entirely. Use the skip. Save your sanity. This entire, several-minute-long section was unbelievably awful, and it completely overtakes the rest of the level just by virtue of being that bloody awful. I'm craving steak donuts, legitimately. Are you talking about the snake platforms from, like, Mega Man 3 when you say that? Otherwise, I don't know what you mean. The original Blaze Heat Next was better than this. Next 6 was certainly more interesting than this. Because the rest of the level wasn't interesting or even super worth talking about. Yeah, I don't really feel the X6 in the title, gonna be honest. Even the upwards climb, like, what does that have to do with X6? I don't remember any stage that was like that, really. Well, one other thing is worth talking about. The aesthetic in the energy element room is awful, because they communicate pits very well. Well, since I didn't get that far, I'll have to take your word for it. Which has caused at least one death, subsequent unnecessary rematch. Otherwise, though, I'll say this is my least favorite level, as the Mecha Dragon on tiny ice blocks was at least somewhat cool. Oh no! Really? But yeesh, what a miserable experience. Yeah, I think that about sums it up. So I have to leave my review with that picture above and call it a day. Probably should have. Since this is one of those rare occurrences where I felt a full review wasn't completely necessary. All of the stage's issues are glaringly obvious, to the point where it's very easy to see why this level ended up where it did in the rankings. That being said, I don't want to be completely unthorough with this review either. So on that note, here's a list of this level's biggest issues. The haphazard tile placement makes the stage itself look like a jumbled mess. There's even a spot for spikes are used as background details of all things. Yeah, I wasn't going to take the chance to find out, but... just background details. Enemy placement feels more like an afterthought than anything. At least up until you get to the auto-scroll segment, become far more of a nuisance due to the sheer hectic nature of that section. There are gaps leading up to the boss, so you can't jump across the utilities. Well, good thing we have utilities then, huh? Like a Dragon's fight is made much worse due to the limited space you have to avoid his fireballs, along with the floor being entirely spikes. I'm not trying to spoil, but there's going to be something I'm going to be getting for that. Just saying. Given that the last screen is basically a giant pit, it's very easy to accidentally fall in when you first enter the room. Of course, dying here means refighting the Mecha Dragon. That's mean. A gotcha trap, of all things, at a stage like this. I think that pretty much covers it. Potential argument to be made that the stage isn't really a genuine effort, or rather was submitted to the contest as a joke, on account of its name, among other obvious factors with level design listed above. Even if that was the case, however, I'm firmly in the camp that level design like this should get a pass simply for being under the "it's a joke" umbrella. Same. I don't know how I feel about that. Like, the fact that this stage feels like it's just one big joke on the player. I personally would have cut it for that reason alone. I know I'm not a judge and I shouldn't have the right to make that decision, but I'm just speaking personally, I probably wouldn't have kept it in. But then again, I don't know what its competition was, so... Oops. Wait, what? Oh, you have to use the D-pad once you're in here, okay. I have to get used to this. Patchy. Please heat Nix. Fire. Bird. Oh god. Patchy. Oh god, that's horrible. Look at her. She's barely functioning. Well, there is certainly a clear inspiration from one of Axis's most infamous levels. What, the fire? I mean, I guess, but I wouldn't exactly say that's enough. Annoying and tedious auto-scrolling sections, filled to the brim with equally annoying respawning enemies and instant death hazards. Prepare for a bad time if you plan to buster only this, as some parts during the tower climb essentially lead to dead ends with impossible jump. Excuse me? Impossible okay. I did not know that. A lot of the platforms are very narrow too, so you bet you're going to get knocked straight into the non-rising lava of death on one straight bullet. Non-rising? I wonder what she means by that. Because it seemed to rise for me. For a double whammy, let's introduce puzzles into this. Puzzles with no prior introduction on how they work, nonetheless. Then when you reach the Mecha Dragon boss, it's just a very underwhelming climax. The boss AI remains unchanged, fireballs from the dragon are fairly simple to dodge, even with limited space. And if you get knocked off the platforms, there are spikes that serve as safety pads, as these aren't Mega Man 1 spikes. This is true, I forgot about the iframes. So, better than a death pit? I suppose. The token does not exist. I mean, I'm guessing it does, but I'm guessing she never could find it. And from what I hear, that's a likely scenario. Flashman A5. Oh yeah, I haven't been mentioning the numbers. Mick 13 of 100, Shinru 9 of 100, Patchy 37 of 100, and now Flashman A5 19 of 100. There we go. I gotta get used to this. As a blind judge, determining whether a level is an honest attempt or exclusion-worthy troll is a matter of interpreting what the level tells me about itself. This level tells me, unquestionably, that it's purposely terrible for the laugh at the expense of the player. Yeah, that was pretty obvious once you got to the upper climb. At that point, most players would just rage quit, I'm sure. Why is X6 meme-worthy? Because of its notoriously bad design choices? So a possible best-case scenario would have this ending up as a good level. Doesn't help that there is a reference to MaGMML's 2 Snowman, a verified troll level. The repetitious challenges are pure pain. Small icy platforms surrounded by pits that are barely close enough to jump across unassisted. Swarmed by speedy spines, the most notoriously difficult version of Sniper Joe. A messy auto-scrolling sequence, subjecting the player to 3 minutes, the length of the entire NES Big Man level. Of instant death, the slash mistake, culminating in an out-of-nowhere puzzle gimmick, that's guaranteed to get players killed before they figure out what's going on. Yeah, I seem to remember Raw Mithra running into that problem, actually, thinking about it. Oy. An incredibly missable token found after the interminable auto-scrolling sequence. Recall that none of the game's secret finding upgrades were implemented when these levels were created. Yeah, they had to find it just with their own wits. And as we've seen already with some of these stages, that's kind of mean. Following the boss fight, a cruel fake-out with the floor is secretly a bottomless pit, requiring the player to freeze immediately or die and refight the boss. There's no way anyone playtested this. Buster Only Run is absolutely ludicrous. Yet special weapons make the horizontal stretches utterly pointless. I would disagree. Oh wait, horizontal, not vertical, never mind. Problematic construction is blatantly obvious in the last couple of screens. I argued strongly to have this excluded. Good on ya! Obviously it's still here. Basic functionality, decent aesthetics, some original ideas, and actually thoughtful weapon refills are worth a few points. But just as soon give this a 0. Yeah, I mean, sure, you could make that argument, but I would argue that this level would not be fun even under the slightest bit of scrutiny. So yeah, throw it out, is what I would say. But again, they had to have 175 levels. that made the cut. And I really don't know what their competition was. Honestly, if I were them, I would have if they really didn't have enough good entries and they had to fill a slot, I would have just made their own levels, probably. Of course, I don't know if they had the time. I know they're capable of making their own levels, though, because I played MaGMML 2, and the judges made some pretty interesting levels in that during the post-game. So yeah, I would have just maybe done a filler or whatever. But anyways, onwards to the last judge comment for this one. A-Spark, 26 of 100. There was actually a debate among the panel whether or not this was a deliberate troll attempt. We already yeeted out a couple of stages that we think crossed the line. The debate came down to whether or not we thought this was intentionally malicious or just plain incompetent. I think the latter, for what it's worth. If it was a long debate, it was a long debate, though. If it isn't a troll, it also isn't playable. But a few choice changes might have made it even remotely playable. Namely, some specific infinite ammo weapons, one or two more wider platforms, to remove most of the pixel-perfect jumps, and removing that Mega Man 1 enemy flying shell. It was frankly just absurd at a level like this, resulting in it being a right pain in the tail, even long after it's gone off screen. That and a puzzle, imagine me making finger quotes when I say this, at the end of the vertical climb that's timed, and frankly impossible to parse until after several deaths, because the switches appear long before the puzzle itself. It's obvious this level is designed around the weapon set. I don't mind Seedas doing that, but when Seedas do that, they need to make that more obvious from the get-go. Infinite ammo on certain weapons absolutely puts the player into that mindset. But this stage starts off with lots of impossible jumps, tons of Joes and pit enemies, and I found it doesn't really sink in what it expects until the climb and the absurd amount of ammo lying at the start. The climb is obviously the worst part of the stage, and for reasons I explained earlier. Even after the final corridor and boss is like, whatever, man. I think if the few things I mentioned had been implemented, it might have been playable. I went in afterwards with the depot command that gave infinite ammo, and it was playable, more or less. I question that, but he's probably a lot more skilled than I am. So yeah, utterly incompetent. Utterly devoid of fun, not much more need to be said. Awful level, really. Yeah, I gotta agree. Again, I might attempt it later on. When I have much better abilities to pick from, but... ooh. It's the worst stage in here for a reason. Next up is Crashman Simulator. 18 of 100. Well, this is a familiar feeling concept. I know I played it in Mega Man Maker before. You have? Multiple times. Having to lure around Crashman, or rather Crashmen, so he's safe to kill later seems like a neat idea, but in practice, it's actually really frustrating to control. Yeah. Turning the experience into a chore with how long Crashman's gauntlet is. Lure 2 at once is just the cherry on top. Except you don't have to do 2 at once. But I suppose it's faster if you do, as they're very rarely synced up. But then there's also a flashman at the end of the section, and the floor doesn't explode unless you kill all 3 of them. As a result, you could just use Tornado Blow and Spark Chaser to kill the Crashman, and then just go Flashman to claim the element. I rather doubt that was the intention, and it breaks the level clean in 2. That might be a good thing, though. Might have been super annoying otherwise. I also love the zzz up there in his corner. As if to say, I wanted to fall asleep here. Mick, 18 of 100. Shinryu, 10 of 100. I get what you're going for, but it doesn't work. It really doesn't. Influencing the movements of a boss to solve a puzzle is a decent idea on paper, but in execution it leaves a lot to be desired. For as simplistic as this level is, trying to do this the intended way, by getting 2 copies of Crashman to cooperate with jumps, is downright tedious. If you somehow manage to get them to the end, though, you know of the task of dealing with 3 bosses at the same time. This whole process would be really frustrating if it weren't so easy to cheat it. The floor doesn't break away until all 3 bosses are dead, meaning you just use weapons that can reach the Crashman from below, like Tornado Blow or Spark Chaser, and then head to the right to do a Flashman alone. While I'm thankful that there's a workaround to the frustration this level could cause, I still can't ignore the fact that this is a glaring oversight that breaks the whole point of the stage. Maybe this could have worked out better if it was split into different segments, along with using different bosses that you had to avoid rather than indirectly control. I'm honestly not really sure what else I could suggest here, other than to get more people to playtest your stage next time. You'd be surprised by how many ways any given level, even the most basic of ones, can be broken. Yeah, this stage just kind of feels like it's broken left, right, and sideways. Patchy, 40 of 100. Clash of Crashes! Yeah, now she's thinking. Yeah, if you don't know, in some parts of the world, Crashman is called Clashman, which I don't know which name I'd prefer, but considering he's all about explosions, I think Crashman would still make more sense. Well, this was certainly a weird little experience. I find the concept of manipulating and escorting an enemy through a series of obstacles to be a pretty neat gimmick. As the current stage stands, however, it's kind of more like a proof of concept than a fleshed-out execution, which is a shame. At least that's what I think the stage was trying to go for anyways. Next, it isn't really clear what good sending the Crashman to the end does. If anything, it makes the end fight more difficult. Being you against both Flash and Crash at the same time, while they kinda just spawn camp you a lot, the little hole you have to get out of. Yeah, I tried to be legit with it, but it actually caused more harm than good. I do notice the platform you start on disappears if any of the Crashmen were to be eliminated. So it's kind of an enforcement mechanism in place. It doesn't work though, as you could just ignore the Crashmen doing their own thing in their chambers, and go about your way to the end. I'm getting mixed messages here. One person said you could just destroy all 3 and not worry about it. And Patchy says you can't, so I'm wondering if, like, there's a glitch in place that causes the stage to behave differently depending on what you do? I'm not sure on that. Flashman 85, 32 of 100. Pardon me, but I believe you're looking for the Make an Experimental Mega Man Maker level contest, which is down the hall. Unconventional escort quest? Actually pretty cool. Blowing up the floor to deter premature victory? Smart. Communicating the rules to the player up front? Much appreciated. Let's where the questions cease having positive answers, so I'll stop asking them. Visually, this is the level equivalent of paint swatches from a hardware store. Decide which Mega Man 2 tile set best fits your simulator room. The Bubble Man section is begging to be animated. A patch of unsightly non-solid tiles sticks around after the floor explodes. Some other music after the bosses are defeated might have been nice. Thanks to haphazardly arranged architecture, with invisible slopes no less, navigating Crashman through the level was a mostly tedious affair, which reaches peak difficulty right before the easiest part. Without any hazards to you or Crashman, however, the whole experience is pointless. It's a time-wasting journey that ends up a sloppy boss team-up. Assuming you play the level as intended, that is. Points to self. Contrary to what the typo-written text box says, the floor only collapses when you've destroyed all 3 bosses. Unless you're Patchy, apparently. Among other strategies, you can immediately obliterate Crashman and his flagrantly accidental doppelganger with Tornado Blow, saunter over to the ladder, and hit Flashman from the ladder with Magnetic Shockwave, thus completing the easiest damage-free run in the contest. We like the idea of needing to reverse Crashman's path in reverse to get the token. Aside from checking if the visible wall is still there after the bosses explode, nothing to it, aside from saving a smidge of weapon energy to get back out. Fun concept, dysfunctional execution. I notice you also... Let's see... Okay, never mind. Like, aren't you going to comment the fact that you basically had to fight yourself in this stage? I'm surprised you didn't mention that, like, as a joke. Oh well. Oh, we got a comic from Spark. 20 of 100. So you are. There are two crashmen. Jump when to shoot. Two broken halves are the same. Who will win? That's not how it... God, you do not look well. Not challenge. I... Jet Clash to help make challenge. The ultimate challenge. Sure, buddy, let's get you orange pop. Is there more down there? There is, but I can't see it because of the exit. But yeah, it's basically just one big joke. Spark did this a few times in MaGMML 2. And people did get critical about it because of how much Spark did it at first. I mean, I don't mind it, especially if it fits the stage. But yeah, I did this legit. Wasn't that great, though. It was honestly annoying to get them to those high jumps. And at the end, you just have to fight a bunch of bosses. Not exactly pleasant. 173. Glitched up beta. Mick 19 of 100. Well, there's a whole lot of nothing. The concept had potential. I was certainly baffled when I arrived. It was just dull and bland instead of anything interesting. Throwing out what little concept it had in short order, the zeros seemed to disappear about halfway through the level, and having barely anything to interact with. Oh. At the very least, it was surprisingly functional for a glitched-up beta, but it's not the most significant bar to pass. Otherwise, there's really not a lot to comment on here. Apparently not. This was short. Shinryu, 14 of 100. There's virtually nothing to talk about here. You've been taking this level at face value. And that is a joke about the game engine getting messed up. And therefore, it's supposed to be bad. It still ends up falling short. Get the attention here, even if I didn't find the joke so funny. But the problem is you still need an actual level to support it. Granted, the concept of a glitch level is exactly new, but I think this still could have worked if a lot more effort was put into it. If you're going to do something like this, you might as well go all out with it. Make the visuals more unique and twisted as the level goes on. Or add strange new enemies and gimmicks to mix things up. Basically, my advice would be to take the glitched up aspect and make it a part of the level's identity, instead of just being a weak punchline. Patchy, 29 of 100. Yeah, she's annoyed. You didn't install Mega Man Source. An interesting choice of aesthetics, I guess. That's right. Talk about the music. It do be so gosh darn loud, holy garbles. I freaking love Patchy. Her choice of words is funny to me. And charming. Honestly though, take away the whole glitchy part, it is really not that impressive. The architecture involves all straight paths. Only one section of the whole stage involving any platforming at all. You reach the next part by a letter each time. Not beat by the checkpoint reach notification. It almost felt like sections were just lazily copied and pasted together. The same lame way of transitioning. Ugh. Gotta get my words right here. This stage would have been more interesting had it tried to utilize its theming a lot more. Like having classes of different houses together to form interesting terrains to traverse through, enemies fused together to create a glitched abomination. Now I'm being reminded of Mushroom Kingdom Fusion. Make the game stage layout more chaotic by having more fairy transition methods, etc. Just things more on top of the mind than spattering giant ones and zeros in places. Numbers! How spooky! I mean, numbers can be spooky, but not in this context, definitely. Flashman 85, 24 of 100. Thank you for calling the MaGMML 3 Level Design Support Center. Before we connect you with a representative, please listen to our self-service checklist, which can help resolve many common level design problems. Has the level been playtested by multiple people? Has it placed too close to screen entrances? Are a common sign of under playtesting. 2. If your level has any text, if you see dialogue, has it been reviewed for typos and clarity? Is the level visually appealing? Little touches, background tiles arranged to look like an enemy or like a glitchy program, are nice. Remember that repetitive textures, long stretches of solid colored background should be avoided, regardless of the theme. Choosing enemies that fit the theme, or spriting them to look like they fit, is also recommended. 4. Are the challenges thoughtfully constructed? Or is it some sort of thematic, difficulty, complexity progression? If there are blank screens with no apparent purpose, every challenge contains only one hazardous component, to be overcome by doing the same thing 4 times in a row, the challenge design is probably not sufficiently innovative or meaningful. Disguising spikes and platforms as binary code is a cute idea, but not enough to carry a level. 5. Are checkpoint objects placed at logical intervals, using the correct type and quantity? 6. Has the level been checked for any oversight or consistencies with collision, section objects, bombless pits where there should logically be a transition to the screen below, tiles that don't function like they look like they should, especially if deception isn't a core theme? 7. Should a level avoid making the player fight Sonic Man on dry land? Because seriously, fighting Sonic on dry land is not any fun for Flash Man. We apologize, no representatives are available. Please hang up and try your level again. Okay, could we actually have a MaGMML level design support center? Because I would actually love that, personally. Anyways, last but not least, a spark. 19 of 100. Me. This stage. Is this art? If you say so. Yeah, I have nothing to say on this one either. It's kind of just whatever. At least it didn't frustrate me, though. I'll give it that. At least I wasn't frustrated. It was just kind of over before I knew it. And could be worse, I suppose. And I've played worse. After all, I played Mega Man 8 FC. Man, someone's gonna want to slap me for that one. You don't know the drill. Number 172. Mick, 18 of 100. Not funny. Didn't laugh. Humor can be a nice thing to have, but it's important to have an actual level behind it. This ultimately does not. This at least starts with something of a level, albeit one with not but some gravity flips and weirdly recolored enemies. Also didn't even use bug shots for Crashman or Gutsman, despite the engine supporting that. The music dies so easily that I'm not convinced it's the engine this time. Some of these issues they're talking about might have been fixed in post. Because I didn't really run into the music dying or anything. Shinryu, 14 of 100. Skeleton is confused. Oh, alright then. But why, though? In all seriousness, however, there's not a whole lot to discuss here. Design-wise, this level's all over the place. Many sections are either largely empty, feature inefficient enemies thanks to their placements, with special mention going to the hot dog, who's easily killed by standing right next to it. The tokens are probably the most noble things here, given 2 of them are hidden in a pretty ridiculous way. The level does hint at them, via some ground tiles being slightly different. Not that I could tell. It's such a minor and easy to miss detail that, quite frankly, can't see anyone obtaining them their first time through. The prior knowledge, or the map upgrades at least. I found one of them by complete accident, actually, and the second one I found just because I figured it was hidden the same way. And it was. Ugh. I do not like invisible pathways. I don't. Patchy, 44 of 100. But do you know the bulldozer? Maybe I do. Well, that was certainly a level. there's a story being told in the form of a million signposts that I'm not going to read through. This ain't a Minecraft adventure map. Wait, is that thing in Minecraft where you just get NPC dialogue as you go through a stage? I never really got into Minecraft, so who knows. I guess it's somewhat entertaining to look at the wacky changing visuals and unexpected tricks the level occasionally throws at you. Other than that, though, it's really any, like, actual level design. It's going on for the majority of the level. And yet you give it 44 of 100. That's a pretty high score for what is essentially not a level that Patchy has much to talk about. I see this happen a fair amount, like from the various judges throughout the game that I've watched Raw and Mithril playthrough, where they can sometimes give a pretty generally critical take on the stage and yet still give it 40 plus on the score. And I'm like, okay, that's far from a passing grade, but it's certainly more than I'd expect. I don't know if it has to do with how the scoring system works, but it just feels higher than it should. I mean, for a stage like this, I'd expect it to be like a 12 or a 20 or something. I don't know. Kind of weird. Flashman 85, 21 of 100. You're right. I don't know the drill, because I was under the impression that the drill was to make a good Mega Man level. And a haphazard collection of assets. It's a silly narrative to excuse the absence of real level design. I actually like a narrative, personally speaking. It kind of adds more flavor to the stage, but I do think a good level should go along with it, though, all the same. Just saying. The story level hinges on the player being amused by the premise of sloppiness due to budget issues. If the humor falls flat, or worse yet, if the player ignores the generically named info boxes, which don't even bother with character portraits, then the whole thing becomes a waste of time. The story is the only reason to play this level. Yeah, admittedly, the joke is kind of bad. Oh, we ran into budget issues. We can't make a good stage now. Yeah, that's not exactly good for a contest. Now, if you made a stage like this and you were showing it on a YouTube video or something, there I could understand it. But for a contest like this, no, sorry, it doesn't work. Graphics? Most screens consist of repetitive foreground with a nondescript or crudely abstract background. Soundtrack? Solid fudge of decent tunes that don't complement each other, assuming the music starts playing at all. That must have been fixed in post. And I'm always wary when levels reuse iconic music from previous MaGMMLs. X Factory would like a word with the Wily Castle section. Do they consider it a bad tune? Gameplay? Shoot the thing in front of you, jump over an easy gap. Learn how more than a dozen unrelated enemies and gimmicks function, then wonder if you'll see any of them again. Fall through a fake floor, and then replay the whole level to get the token you just cheated out of. Yeah, that was me. Polish? Bombless pits are indistinguishable from screen transitions. Gravity flippers hardly look like gravity flippers. Visible and completely absent collision. Objects turn air into walls and walls into air. Jump over the gate to turn Wily Castle into Wily Prison. Ooh, that's bad. Problems like this make the hidden letters look like the actual telling mistakes, instead of something suspicious to be investigated. I like the idea of a level that's comically falling apart because of imaginary money matters, but this one falls apart because it's a joke first and Mega Man level second. Yeah, it feels like this would have been funnier as just a YouTube video that someone made, like as a stage or whatever, and showed it off, than in the contest itself. Ace Sparks, 15 of 100. Another comic? Wow, this is MaGMML 2. You realize entering intentionally crappy levels does not get the response you're expecting. This got zero reaction from me. I feel bad putting in the effort I am into this comment. And other than my sheer bafflement, you somehow break in the music player? Something to discuss or make light of. Except this. For anyone playing, 2 of the hidden tokens are down inside invisible ladders during these terrains with stone floors. Yep. Okay, I love that Apepark at least spoiled where to find the tokens. I know from some people that's bad because they might see the judge commentary first and play the stage, but still, they are kind of bullshit, so I don't blame him. Yeah, not a fan of where they put the tokens. Otherwise, the stage is another easy one. Just go through the motions, so to speak. Not much more to say than that. So now we're at 171. Not delivering on promises. Ugh! Shakes fist. Ah, hate you so much. And it all has to do with the damn token. Mick, 15 of 100. You know, if you promise me nothing, then how would you not deliver on promises that don't actually exist? Thinking. But then I suppose there's some promises the level won't deliver on in the end anyway. Anyway, for the level itself. The level is short, self-arbitrary design, infinite weapon energy for some reason, absolutely no checkpoints. It's definitely not an award winner. I wouldn't even call it fully functional. Yeah, especially that water room with the freaking crabs that stalk you to the end of days. Still, there's things in here to note. Crab Room was memorably silly, and the Wispy Quick Man, which I know is from a ROM hack, was okay twist on the old dev kit boss. That's about all there is to say here, though. Wait. Oh, okay. He means the boss. I almost forgot about him. January 30 of 100. Another comic? Man, today's full of these. I don't get it. Yeah, I got next to nothing for this one. There's a lot of things I could ask why. Two in this day, such as, why are there no checkpoints anywhere in this level, even if it is incredibly short? Why does this level give you infinite ammo for every weapon? Why is the token hidden via an invisible ladder? Regardless of what the answers are to those questions may be, the rest of this level's problems are all glaringly obvious. The only other semi-noble thing in the stage is the modified Quickman fight at the end. Aside from the fact that he turns into a small flame while he's jumping for some reason, his projectiles are a lot easier to avoid than Fatal Quickman's are, provided you stay close to him. The farther away you are, the wider the spread on the flames, which can often put you in situations where it's near impossible to avoid taking damage. All things considered, be surprised if this level was intended to be a joke. Even by those standards, though, we'll say it's particularly good. Patchy, 39 of 100. Promise isn't... This level only consists of a few screens with very basic platforming challenges. Enemy placements aren't all that inspiring either. It's also borrowing a portion of Mega Man 1 Fortress Stage 2 at one point, which is odd to say the least. What's even odder is that all of your weapons are given infinite ammo. Other than one part with the horde of endless crabs, the level is completely trivialized by the fact you can keep spamming Tornado Blow. And that's one way to do it. I just use Spark Chaser. The boss is just a lazy Quickman edit. Lack of any checkpoints, the level will make getting to him a bit of a hassle. The stage is extremely short and easy anyway. There's also this weird unmarked secret laying around with pretty broken rewards all around. You can just keep grinding for once you know they're there. Huh. Unless they're referring to the token room, then I'm not sure. Flashman 85, 70 of 100. Imagine your list of promises to design this level looks something like this. I promise to not load a bunch of Mega Man 2 assets into a shotgun, fire wildly at the screen. I promise to show players how much I care about them by placing at least one checkpoint literally anywhere. I promise to communicate to players that they have infinite weapon energy before they get tired of dying repeatedly, to challenges that are completely unmatchable with the Buster. I promise to spare players from awkward screen transitions, aimless free scrolling, and focused challenges such as looking for a token in an unseen room accessible only by a tiny invisible ladder that is not telegraphed or hinted at in any way. Yeah. I promise to not create a secondary secret room containing outrageous reward requiring dev team intervention to maintain game balance. So basically, there used to be one, but I think they got rid of it. I promise that the boss will have all his sprites replaced with a cute little flame, and his projectiles will be free of technical polish problems, thus ensuring he's taken seriously and not run off as a slapdash joke. Slapdash? Okay. I promise that creative div kit boss alterations, acceptable music selection, and compulsory functionality won't account for the majority of points this level receives. Whatever the actual intent was here, please promise me that your next level will be just like this one. I'm not counting on it. Ace Spark, 36 of 100. Another comic? By the unlimited fiery strength and a hold in my grasp, the will to tremble at the purple might of... All the spamming, yeah. Hey, we're gonna get sued by Michael Palin, right? I don't like spam. I don't know who they're referring to, honestly. And that looks to be it, okay. Yeah, I hate the stage. And it's not just because of the token, believe it or not. The final room with all the crabs falling down and having to deal with the giant lanternfish and all of that. Ugh. You can skip it if you cleverly use Magnet Beam, but I'm just like... I hate this freaking stage. Ugh, it took me forever to find that damn token, man. And the last stage that we did... A piece of cake, but with aesthetics. Okay, 26 of 100. Mick, 20 of 100. Well, guess it's half true. Certainly a piece of cake. Nothing in here ever feels threatening. It isn't all that interesting, but flat-colored backgrounds with a couple of Tornado Man tiles does not make a good aesthetic. In fact, there's times when the visuals are outright hard on my eyes. Never mind some of the broken camera scrolling. In other words, there's really no aesthetics to be had here. It's not terribly offensive outside of the visuals. Particular personal props for the split path, for 2 RG elements being right at the start of the level, making it one of the least offensive second elements I've encountered in a while. But it doesn't do nearly enough to be good. Shinryu, 14 of 100. To be honest, I'm more fascinated by the level's name than the level itself. It was even mean, if anything. Either way, there's not a whole lot to talk about with this one. It's a relatively empty stage with very basic enemy and gimmick applications. To the point where, even after replaying the stage numerous times, it's kind of a struggle to remember any one distinct section of it. Aside, perhaps, the methods for getting both tokens. At the very least, I could commend having a split path that's easy to access, even if it's directly at the start of the stage. That said, the other major thing to comment on here would be the visuals. They're severely lacking, to put it mildly. I guess it might be an intentional joke, given the level's name. If that's actually the case, though, I don't really think the joke was worth it. Patchy, 36 of 100. Oh no. Aesthetic isn't. Aesthetics not. In other words. I can see Patchy didn't enjoy herself. It's a major irony of a tile if ever I saw one. Well, I did get one thing right. It is a piece of cake. Yummy. Yes, cake is very good. So is ice cream. Ice cream goes good with cake. I'm sure many people don't know that. There are 2 paths. Both of them are relatively simple and aren't really all that remarkable, other than the occasional screen flashes in the form of bright background tiles. I guess that's supposed to be the aesthetics? Fancy font? At least the split happens right at the beginning. I don't know if the split was very necessary to begin with. They could have been combined as one, and it would have flowed just the same for how themeless both sections were. For each end, you fight Dustman and Inker, respectively. They're very standard ones, with no changes to their arenas to spice things up. One interesting bug did happen where Inker's element had spawned inside the boss. Oh no! It got pushed off screen because he died too close to the wall there. Oops. Yeah, that's probably what caused her to have the expression. She's like, oh come on, really? Flashman 85, 32 of 100. After wondering about who's been decorating the cakes you've seen, unless you mean aesthetics in the sense of this piece of cake plays music? What's funny is that I have heard of a cake that actually did get created in such a way that music was playing on it. I'm not sure why you would have an instrumentation on a cake, but okay. I'll give you credit for the subtle difference in floor color between paths, for competent foreground graphics, but the unemphasizing, solid-colored backgrounds and occasional moments of overzealous window tiling offer no sense of place or wonder. As for creativity, I want anything? Anything at all. Create something. Don't just drop one or two random enemies onto boring platforms. Especially don't let whole screens go by without any real danger, unless you're giving the player a break or setting up a surprise. One enemy acting as a shield for another enemy is a good first step, but it's not enough to carry the entire level. Three main things make up my total score here: an absence of problems with construction or programming, lack of anything to aggravate me or to justify a skip teleporter, and the fact that I give 5 points for a perfectly acceptable soundtrack. Apart from screen transitions being indistinguishable from pits, this short level is easy enough to navigate. Checkpoints are sufficiently frequent. Collision and transition objects are used correctly, though you can blindly fall onto tallies in one spot. Each path has a couple prominent enemies or gimmicks, so there's the vaguest sense of focus. Challenge introductions are passable, if for no other reason than that enemies are usually introduced one at a time in the blandest setting possible. Although Rush Jet and Laser Trident obliterate what little challenge there is, the design allows for freedom of weapon use without needless restrictions. I care about the title accurately describing the level, and despite the contentious aesthetics portion, the level is indeed a piece of cake. Yummy. Ace-Park, 26 of 100. Piece of cake with aesthetics. Well, that was a fucking lie. Yeah, where's the cake? The cake is a lie. GLaDOS was right the whole time. Damn it. But okay, seriousness aside, it's another somewhat easy level, but I'd still take stages like this over ones that frustrate me, like that one level. And the one level, I mean, stage 175, the X6 meme. Yeah, I'd rather take stages like this over that. So I wasn't as offended by that. And I would certainly take it over this one, because at least I wasn't fuck off annoyed because of the token problems, yeah. And with that, I'm going to be calling it here. We've already been doing this for about 54 minutes, due to how many stages I completed last time. I'll try to do less per session, just so I'm not spending as much time on commentary. Because, yeah, I didn't know it was going to take that long. So yeah, I'll just call it here for now. We will continue this another time. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you later.